Chapter 1631. A shrill howl interrupted the conversation from outside. Olivia heard the bells ringing, and Willow ran outside. Some of the bodyguards suddenly sprawled onto the ground. Ethan carried Willow. "Run," she gestured, assuring him that she wasn't afraid of this. She freed herself from his embrace. Leia didn't know much about spells. However, the fact that those people collapsed out of the blue surely had something to do with spells. In fact, those bugs were just a feint. Other cursed bugs were used while Olivia's party was distracted. Ethan was used to using military force in confrontation. However, their radar could only detect drones, not bugs. Some bugs were so tiny that they could enter a human body and end someone's life without them knowing. It might sound like a myth, but those who had experienced it before knew how scary cursed bugs could be. Willow hurriedly rushed to those who had fainted. They all showed similar symptoms: foam around their mouths, eyes that had rolled back, twitching bodies, and green lips. She slit her palm without hesitation, feeding the affected her blood. Her blood could neutralize many kinds of poisons. She saved Ethan with that before. Leia was dumbstruck. Could a 4-year-old child really do that? Willow's execution was neat, and she did not show a sign of panic. She didn't lose her cool at all. "Watch out!" Ethan suddenly pushed Leia away. A little green bug was flying in her direction, but his efforts were in vain. When it fell to the ground, its color matched with that of the ground. "Better watch out, guys. These bugs can camouflage. Don't let it bite you." These men had been following Ethan through thick and thin. They had slogged through the most dangerous artillery field, hiked through thick woods, and fought against the strongest mercenaries in the world. But none of them had ever dealt with bugs. On top of that, they couldn't detect the bugs with the radars. Those bugs might bite them the moment they put their guard down. Willow was the only person who knew how to curse bugs, but she was busy saving those who had been bitten. It was a competition against death. The medicines wouldn't work if they were delayed any longer. By the time Olivia noticed that something wasn't right, it was already too late. There was no point running outside. Jacqueline let out an ominous smile. It was a trick. Jacqueline was simply trying to buy some time by promising that she would confess everything. Like those cursed bugs, it was a mere distraction. Perhaps the deadliest bug had already entered the room. Humans were born with a sixth sense. The more dangerous the situation was, the more heightened their sixth sense would be. Olivia sensed that something was watching her in the dark, something extremely dangerous. Its sheer stare gave her goosebumps. A chill ran down her spine. She didn't dare to budge an inch. She didn't know what the thing was, but it put her in a fight-or-flight mode. Jacqueline was cursed. As long as the curse wasn't lifted, the enemy would be able to send over waves of cursed bugs again and again. That would not be good for Olivia. Jacqueline, whose hands were still chained, grinned at Olivia. "Olivia, I win." "Not so fast." Still trying to deny reality. "No one can save you today. There's a death sting bug behind you. We cultivated it with hundreds of poisons for more than 10 years. It knows how to read people too." Chapter 1632. Despite her frail state, Jacqueline was over the moon at the thought that the person she hated the most was going to die. Ever since their lives were switched, peace could never settle between them. Only one out of two could survive. Jacqueline knew how heavy the consequences were considering what she had done. The worst case possible would be her dying a tragic death. Either way, it wouldn't make much difference. It would just be death. Even if she beat Olivia, she would have to deal with the Fordhams, the Heaths, and the Millers. There was nowhere else she could escape to. Everything was going as she had planned. She intentionally promised Olivia to confess everything to buy some time. Meanwhile, Olivia didn't dare to act recklessly. She focused intently. There were many types of spells, and different people could cultivate different species of poisonous bugs. Still, regardless of the species, the murder could be committed only if the bug touched human skin. As long as she could dodge before the bug touched her skin, she would be fine. Olivia was in full defense mode. Her face, arms, and neck were exposed to the air. "Oh really?" She remained calm, staring into Jacqueline's eyes. Suddenly, Olivia sprinted forward. "Now, Her only and the best shield was Jacqueline. Before the bug flew toward her, she quickly grabbed Jacqueline to block the bug's way. Right then, Olivia finally had a glimpse of Deathsting Bug's appearance. It was a bug with an appearance of beyond scientific knowledge. Its body was built of 6 wings, 8 legs and 2 antennae. 2 fangs were hanging from its big mouth, and its head was the size of a baby's fist. That pair of fly-like eyes shone in a glossy green color. Olivia had never seen such a creature before. The mere sight of it was gross. As the death-sting bug bumped into Jacqueline's stomach, Olivia quickly grabbed a torture tool prepared by Leia and flung it in the bug's direction. The bug hit the ground. When it was going to fly up again, she stomped it without holding back. Green liquid splattered across the floor, and the room began to reek of rotten smell. It was repulsive. Olivia almost fainted because of the smell. She wondered if the enemy had fed it with hundreds of stink bugs. The foul smell was way too intense. The sound of the bell rang again. Willow and Ethan rushed into the room hurriedly. "Liv, are you all right?" Olivia lifted her foot. The bug's blood was glued to her shoe. Even though it didn't touch her skin, she felt awful. "I'm fine. I just took care of a big bug," she cooed. Ethan sighed in relief. "Thank goodness. You got me there." Willow came up to her, gesturing, "Don't move. It's poisonous." Common poison wouldn't scare Olivia, but it could be rare poison. It was best to be cautious. "Okay, got it." Olivia was being very careful. After making sure that it wouldn't come into contact with her skin, she let her foot down. Ethan called someone over to fetch a full set of clothing and shoes for her. That kind of bug was definitely fatally poisonous. Just a single touch might expose one to danger. Before he came closer to her, he noticed that she had slowly lost her smile. Her expression seemed solemn. He had a bad feeling about it. "Liv, what's wrong?" Her complexion looked bad. She could feel it. There was something else on her neck. She didn't know what bug it was and didn't dare to remove it. She stammered, "I." Before she could finish, her neck stung, and she lost consciousness. Liv. Chapter 1633. Olivia fainted so suddenly that Ethan couldn't register the situation yet. All he could do was to make assumptions. She had been the enemy's target since the beginning. Willow ran toward Olivia's side. The intense ringing bell gave away how anxious she was. Ethan darted to reach Olivia. He didn't know spells, so he didn't know what to do at this time. All he could do was stand right there. He tried to touch her with his hands, but he soon withdrew them. "Willow, what happened to your mother?" His voice trembled in concern. A pale-faced Olivia lay on the floor as though she was sleeping. While Willow was still checking on Olivia, Jacqueline suddenly blurted from behind, "Stop wasting your time. Olivia's gonna be gone for good." She could have just stayed silent. Now that she had spoken up, Ethan turned his head and glared at her. Before she could react, he grabbed her neck and pinned her against the wall. The iron chains rattled as the back of her head hit the wall. Her head began spinning. The world was turning upside down before her as well. She opened her eyes. The moment she saw Ethan's eyes, which were brimming with resentment, Jacqueline knew that she was dead meat unless she spilled the beans. "Ethan Miller, if you kill me, don't think of saving Olivia anymore. She and I are under the same curse, the life bond curse. There's only one person who can lift it in this world." When she said that, she could feel him relaxing his hand around her neck a little. She licked her blood-stained lips before explaining, "There's another name to it, love curse. It was used during the old times. It was formulated for women to punish their partner who betrayed them. But the curse was modified. When it's cast on 2 people, their fates are bound to each other. If one dies, the other one dies too. If you kill me, Olivia will die too. Do you know what will happen then?" "What?" Ethan demanded an answer. "The poison will become reactive and ruin her organs. Everything in her will dissolve like lava. Nothing will be able to save her." The sheer explanation was disgusting and infuriating. Ethan, who was all riled up, slapped her. "You're the one who should be dead." Fresh blood trickled down from the corner of her lips, but she smiled nevertheless. "So what? It wasn't easy for me to escape that mountain. I'll do whatever it means to stay alive. Isn't Olivia the genius?" Let's see if you guys can bring yourselves to let her die with me. Olivia and I will live or die together. Jacqueline had lost her sanity. Ethan was not far from losing his sanity either. It wasn't easy for him and Olivia to come this far together. After what she had suffered in the past, she was supposed to be enjoying her life by now. But why was everything going at odds against her and bringing her to death's door again? Ethan's eyes lost his focus. There was a voice screaming the same thing in his head, kill Jacqueline. Jacqueline was the cause of everything. She ruined everything. She laughed. Well, I never knew that you'd end up like this, Olivia. I'm going to bring you down to hell together. I like the idea. Let's die together. A gun suddenly clicked at her forehead. Her laughter stopped. Go to hell, then. Chapter 1634. Leia grabbed Ethan's hand. Calm down, Ethan. We don't know what's happening to Olivia. You have to keep Jacqueline alive. He gazed at Olivia, who was lying on the floor. He was so furious that his nerves were protruding at the back of his hand, which was holding the gun tightly. No one knew how much he wished he could shoot that crazy woman at this moment. Seeing his hand slowly drooping, Jacqueline knew that she had won the bet. Olivia was the key for her to escape from here. No one dared to hurt the beloved Olivia. Everyone adored her. No matter how much Ethan resented Jacqueline, his best bet was to keep her alive. There was nothing he could do right now. All he could do was to watch Willow check on Olivia. Willow gestured. Mom's safe for now. Do you know if Jacqueline's telling the truth? He asked. She shook her head. I can't find out what kind of curse it is just by looking at Mom. But I'm sure that she's safe for now. Still, concern sat upon her brows. Similar to normal bugs, there were many kinds of cursed bugs. Each kind had different behaviors. Regardless, they needed time to hatch. Willow said, let's head back to Elora village. The only person who could save Olivia was Wendy, the old lady who lived in that isolated little village. Okay, I'll ask someone to prepare the helicopter. Bring her with us. Willow pointed at Jacqueline. Although Jacqueline couldn't understand hand signs, she could roughly tell what Willow was talking about. As Ethan came closer to Jacqueline, she became afraid. Where are you bringing me to? Ethan Miller, it's best you listen to me right now. Release me and you can save Olivia. Otherwise, she'll. Leia shoved a piece of cloth into Jacqueline's mouth. It stunk so badly, no one knew what it was used for before this. Jacqueline, who was raised in a rich family, almost threw up right then and there. Willow, are there cursed bugs around here? Willow shook her head. The cursed bugs won't dare to do anything as long as I'm here. She regretted so much for leaving Olivia's side. If she had stayed, Olivia wouldn't have been attacked. It broke Ethan's heart to see that the little girl was blaming herself. He carried her. It's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. Mom will be fine. Only then did Jacqueline realize Willow's true identity. By calculating Willow's age, she realized that Willow was the baby Olivia gave birth to while suffering from cancer. Jacqueline couldn't believe it. Olivia was mad. However, she couldn't exclaim her thoughts because her mouth was stuffed with a cloth. Someone casually tossed her into the helicopter. They didn't even give her a proper seat. She was lying on the floor like a punching bag. They didn't care about her dignity. No one expected Olivia to be under attack. What would the cursed bug do to her? Things might go south if they dragged any longer, so they departed instantly. They weren't in the right state of mind to care about the Fordhams. However, they had to cross the sea to fly to another country. They had to make a prior report to travel to some areas by air. Even though Ethan had sped up the procedures as much as possible, it took them more than 20 hours to arrive at Elora village. Willow kept Olivia company the whole time. The wound on her palm was bandaged, but she hadn't eaten much. She stayed by Olivia's side, constantly worried. When she finally saw the familiar place, the woods covered in fog, Willow took out some leaves, which she prepared beforehand. She told them to place it under their nose, and they entered the place without trouble. As Willow blew her flute, a huge silhouette appeared among the trees. Chapter 1635. The familiar sound called upon Scarlet, who glided its way toward them quickly. Although Kelvin and Brent had met this snake before, its presence never failed to scare them. Its size was that of a small hill. The fact that it was alive and extending its forked tongue still made it hard for them to believe that it was real. When Kelvin met its piercing eyes, he thought he was going to faint. Meanwhile, it was Leia's first time meeting such a humongous snake, and it was a venomous snake at that. To her surprise, the others didn't show any intention of dodging it. Willow even took a few steps forward. "Watch out!" Leia instinctively reached out for Willow. Surprisingly, the snake lowered its head meekly. The huge creature was behaving meekly in front of such a young child. Willow stroked its scale as a sign of greeting. "Long time, no see." Leia had experienced many kinds of things in life, but this was by far the most absurd situation she had ever encountered. She couldn't believe her eyes. Willow rode it and beckoned at them to follow her. "Let's go." They had no time to waste. They had to detoxify Olivia. Jacqueline was tired and hungry, but there was nothing that she could do. She couldn't speak, and her hands were tied. Feeling helpless, she followed them into the woods. Unlike the fast-paced society in the city, Elora Village never changed. It would remain the same even if it were 5 or 10 years later. Wendy was drying herbs in the yard. Willow scurried to her. Wendy placed her things down at the familiar sound of the bell. "Willow, gosh, I knew that you'd visit me during the holidays. I missed you." Wendy lifted Willow up. Despite her old age, she was as fit as a fiddle. However, now wasn't the time to talk about this. Willow quickly signed that Olivia was in trouble. What happened to Olivia? Wendy's expression fell. Given Olivia's medical skills, she should be able to manage her injuries if anything happened. Judging from how they traveled all the way here to treat Olivia, she had to be in critical condition. Ethan said, "Olivia's cursed." He looked at his watch. "It's been almost 24 hours since she's cursed. Madam Wendy, please check on her." Someone said that it's the life bond curse. The mention of the curse made Wendy frown. "Really? That's bad. We're not sure. We need your help to confirm what type of curse it is." Wendy prompted, "Carry her to the room. I'll treat her right now." Ethan hurriedly carried her into the room. Wendy instructed, "Willow can stay. Others, please leave the room. No one's allowed to enter without my permission." "Yes, Madam Wendy." Ethan could only do as she said no matter how much he was worried about Olivia. He stood guard at the door. Leia, Kelvin, and the others were watching Jacqueline. Jacqueline didn't seem to be doing well, so Kelvin removed the cloth in her mouth. Jacqueline retched and said haplessly, "Water. Give me water." It had been almost a day since she last had a sip of water. The sheer sight of Jacqueline angered Kelvin. It wasn't easy for Ethan to win Olivia's heart back again. Yet, this woman just had to put Olivia's life in danger again. Kelvin fetched a bucket of water and splashed it on her face. "Have as much as you want." Choking on water, Jacqueline broke into a fit of coughs, but it wasn't enough to let his steam off. He did it again. "Is this enough? Stop." Chapter 1636. Leia stopped Kelvin. "We need her alive. If she's telling the truth, Olivia's life is bound with hers. Both of them will die together." He threw the bucket away and flopped on the staircase. "Just what is all this, Miss Miller?" "Mr. Miller has had it tough winning Mrs. Miller's heart back. Don't make me bring up those years she went missing. Every single day felt so long for him. They love each other so much, but everything keeps getting in their way. And the bad guys are free out there. I know, I understand. I know more than you do how much Ethan loves Olivia. I'm the reason they ended up this way. I want Jacqueline dead more than you do. She lied to me for so long, making me hurt Olivia. But what's done is done. We can't do anything. All we can do is to keep Jacqueline alive and wait." Kelvin's eyes were red. The last time he was this upset was the time Ethan was poisoned. No doctors could save him, and death was waiting ahead of him. Ethan managed to survive it, but now, it was Olivia's turn. It hadn't even been a year. He looked at Ethan, who was standing by the door. Wordlessly, Ethan was paying attention to every noise from inside the room. His face was solemn. That jittery and careful side of him felt so foreign. The past Ethan had never been like this. Just why couldn't things work out for this couple? Brent quietly smoked a piece of cigarette in a corner. He broke the suffocating silence, saying, "Make something for Jacqueline. Miss Miller is right. We need her alive. Jacqueline was injured before coming here. The arduous journey to the village lasted for a day and a night, and was now barely hanging on to her last breath." Despite the reluctance, Kelvin did as he was told. When the door was finally opened, Ethan rushed into the room. "Madam Wendy, how's Liv doing?" Wendy's forehead was drenched with sweat. No one knew what she had done, but she seemed exhausted. She didn't lie. It is the life bond curse. His feet staggered backward. This means Liv's life is bound with Jacqueline's. If Jacqueline's dead, that's right. Wendy sympathized. "Why did you offend such a powerful witch?" This curse is normally used on a partner to ensure their loyalty to the relationship, but that witch has restructured the formula of the curse. This curse is stronger. It's a long story. I'll keep you in the loop later, Madam Wendy. Is there any other way to lift the curse off Liv? Since Jacqueline is here, can't we lift it off them together? She let out a helpless smile. It doesn't think that way. What do you think a curse is? It's more complicated than a virus. Every curse is different depending on who the caster is. It can't be lifted that easily. What if we break it by force? The poison will become reactive and ruin her organs. So, the only way to save Olivia is to find the witch. Chapter 1637. Wendy nodded. That is the principle, but considering how life-threatening this curse is, I bet the crafter is one dangerous witch. Olivia's life is in their hands. It's going to be hard to find out what their weakness is. What should we do? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Since that witch has cursed Olivia, we'll curse Jacqueline. We can at least have a plan B when that witch decides to go back on their word. Ethan's eyes lit up in hope. I don't know anything about curses. Please help us, Madam Wendy. He then bowed to her. Please save my wife, Madam Wendy. I'll grant any wish you ask for. Wendy sighed at his genuine request. I just don't understand why things have to turn out this way for both of you. Get up. I know Olivia loves you too. Olivia and I have lived together for some time. And I've grown fond of her. There's no way I'll turn a blind eye to this. She patted his shoulder. Her expression remained solemn. Only powerful witches can cast this kind of curse. I don't know much about the other party. You have to tell me how Olivia became their target. Okay. Wendy told Willow something, and Willow left. Ethan overheard something about a cursed item. Since he didn't know much about curses, he asked, Madam Wendy, what is that for? People in our circle know how powerful a curse can be. I can't lift the curse off Olivia, but I can do everything in my power to protect her. What are you going to do? He was dubious. It's called the Purify Curse. If the poison becomes reactive, it'll be purified immediately. Ethan was amazed to hear that. Does that mean we can break the curse on Jacqueline by force? If only it's that easy. Nothing is definite when it comes to curses. If the poison in Olivia isn't completely purified, a single drop of it is enough to kill her. I can't gamble with her life. The Purify Curse can only serve as an alternative. It's not our ultimate card. Got it. I'll listen to your orders, said Ethan. Tell me what happened lately, then, she prompted. Ethan recounted Olivia's secret while witnessing how the Purify Curse was cast upon her. A doll was used as a cursed item. Wendy made it with her hair strands. The whole process was so fascinating that he couldn't keep his eyes away. So, that woman outside is the one who has been taking Olivia's place this entire time? Asked Wendy. Yes, and she has done way more than that. Every one of us wants her dead, but we can't lay a finger on her right now, he huffed. I understand. That means I don't have to hold myself back against her, do I? I just have to make sure that she stays alive. That's right. Wendy nodded and stood up to reach the cupboard. She carried a big candle out of it and proffered it to Willow. You're the chosen one, a talented witch. You're better than average witches out there. Willow took the candle without hesitation, determined to avenge her mother. Chapter 1638. Brent concocted something simple for Jacqueline. She took a spoonful of it and suddenly swept the bowl off the table. What the hell is this? Is this even edible? Leia slapped her. You should be grateful that you have something to eat. You're not in the position to be picky. Jacqueline growled. Leia Miller, I'm warning you, Olivia's life is in my hands now. If you don't treat me well, I'll kill her. That was her only yet useful bargaining chip. Brent, who didn't know much about curses, reined in his anger. Miss Fordham, as you can see, this village is isolated. The villagers have never interacted with the outside world. This is what they eat every day. The rice you look down on is the crops they cultivated with their sweat. There are no snacks or gourmet food here. Even if you ask for something better, the best cook here won't be able to make it. Jacqueline had observed how backward the village was and knew that he had a point. She suppressed her fury. Fine, make me fried eggs. They should at least have eggs, don't they? Is this a restaurant to you? Do you think you're the young lady of the Fordham family? Kelvin was losing it. Brent pulled him. Don't provoke her. Find some eggs and ask someone to make them. Kelvin was livid, but he couldn't do anything. He had to put up with Jacqueline's tantrum for Olivia's sake. Jacqueline looked at Brent. After spending some time with them, she knew their character enough. Brent was clearly the most mature one out of the bunch. She requested, untie me. Tying me up is bad for blood circulation. I wonder if it'll affect Olivia if my hands are disabled. Don't blame me if something happens to her because of this. My life is worthless, but she's different. She's Mason's granddaughter, the precious young lady of the Fordham family, and Ethan's wife. Though it's a win to sacrifice my life to claim hers. The triggered Leia raised her hand, wanting to slap Jacqueline again. Jacqueline was the most shameless person she had ever met. She orchestrated everything to ruin someone else's family, but she didn't feel guilty about it. She was even proud of her achievement. How disgusting. Calm down, Miss Miller, Brent cooed. Leia shut her eyes and put her hand down. She's a calculating one. Don't untie her. If she escapes, things won't look good for us. We shall think about it later. He couldn't decide on this. They had to wait for Ethan. Willow walked out of the room. Brent gazed at her. The girl had grown taller. The only thing that didn't change was that pair of green eyes. They were void of emotions. She came up to Jacqueline, who was sizing her up. Knowing that Willow was Olivia's daughter, Jacqueline snorted. Monster, you can't speak, and your eyes are green. Are your genes mutated? Leia couldn't help it anymore. Are you out of your mind? She's just a 4-year-old. Be nice. She started to bulldoze her way toward Jacqueline. Willow gestured for Leia to calm down, and Brent stopped Leia as well. Jacqueline was acting weird. It seemed like she was trying to provoke them. But why? What are you looking at, you mons? Before Jacqueline could finish her words, Willow suddenly pinched her mouth to open it wide. Something went into her mouth before Jacqueline realized it. Chapter 1639. Most of the women in the world were afraid of mollusks. If one fell from the tree and landed on their hand by chance, they would scream at the top of their lungs. Still, the young Willow had just thrown a cursed worm into Jacqueline. Jacqueline clearly felt something squishy in her mouth. It was wriggling too. She yelled in disgust. Shut up. Leia shoved a piece of cloth into Jacqueline's mouth. Jacqueline was so caught off guard that she swallowed the worm. She wasn't sure if she was overthinking it, but she could feel it sliding through her esophagus. It was so disgusting that it gave her goosebumps. Willow made sure Jacqueline had swallowed the cursed worm before removing the cloth. Like a madwoman, Jacqueline got on her knees and tried to vomit to remove the worm from her. However, no matter what she did, the only thing that came out of her was bile because she hadn't eaten anything for more than 20 hours. She glared at Willow. What did you feed me? Willow gestured in reply. Leia couldn't understand because she didn't know anything about cursed items. But she could tell that it wasn't something good. At that moment, Ethan came out of the room. The murderous intent around him was almost tangible. It's a heart-devouring worm. His voice was as cold as his eyes. Jacqueline stopped gagging. She could tell that it wasn't something good from his eyes alone. How dare you? Are you trying to kill Olivia? She barked. Wendy's hoarse yet strong voice resounded. Don't worry, you're still safe for now. It'll only send you to throes of pain during the full moon. If you want the antidote, you'd better lift the curse on Olivia. Jacqueline glared at Wendy. Threats don't work on me. It wasn't easy for her to gain the upper hand in the situation. There was no way she would cave in that easily. Olivia was the best possible hostage she could have. She needed to gain much as she could from this. You can try if you don't believe in us. Olivia's life is bound to yours anyway. It's the full moon tonight. Wendy prompted. Untie her. Her complexion looks bad. Let's not torture her for Olivia's sake. What if she suddenly dies because of her weak body? No one can save Olivia then. Brent looked at Ethan, who agreed, do as she says. Only then did Brent untie Jacqueline. After getting tied up for a day, she could barely feel her hands. The deep chain marks around her wrists were appalling. Trying to warm up her limbs, she pointed at her drenched clothes. I want a bath and dry clothes. Get them ready for her, ordered Ethan coldly. It would be easy to catch a cold wearing wet clothes, and a cold could be fatal when the person was in a frail state. Now that Olivia's life was in Jacqueline's hands, Ethan had to be careful. He couldn't gamble with Olivia's life. Jacqueline pointed at Leia. My hands hurt. Let her wash me up. You. Leia's eyes flared in fury. Jacqueline cocked a brow. What's wrong? You don't want to. Thinking about the unconscious Olivia, Leia gave in. Fine, I'll do it. There was no showerhead here, only a wooden bucket. The two ladies were alone in the bathroom. Jacqueline spread her arms. What are you standing there for? Take my clothes off. Leia obeyed. Jacqueline sneered. As I said, you're still that lowly woman even if you were Miss Miller. Chapter 1640. Leia's face remained expressionless as she didn't stop removing Jacqueline's clothes. You must be desperate to kill me, huh? I played you guys like a toy. But you can't kill me. And you have to serve me too. Abruptly, Leia dunked Jacqueline's head into the water. Jacqueline held the rim of the bathtub, wriggling to break free from the coercion. But Leia wasn't going to give her the chance to do so. As the typical cruel woman, Leia waited for a while before yanking Jacqueline's hair upward. After Jacqueline barely caught a few breaths, Leia dipped her head into the water again. The torture repeated a few times. In the end, Leia grabbed Jacqueline's hair tightly. I can't kill you, but I'm strong and have many ways to torture you. You can try me. Jacqueline's upper body was drenched. She thought her hair was going to fall off her head. The torture went on for a while, but Jacqueline let out an ambiguous smile. On the other hand, Olivia, who had been unconscious, suddenly opened her eyes. Ethan came up to her vehemently. Liv, are you all right? You. Olivia grabbed the side of the bed and began gagging, but nothing came out of her mouth. Her hands wrapped around her neck. She seemed to be in torture. Madam Wendy, please come over. Something's wrong with Liv, Ethan shouted. He could only watch her suffer. He didn't know what to do because he didn't know anything about curses. Wendy entered the room and stopped Ethan. What did you do to her? I didn't do anything. She began acting this way as soon as she opened her eyes. Something's off. If it's not Olivia, it's Jacqueline, Wendy informed sternly. Keep an eye on Olivia. Don't make her do anything. Got it. No one knew how much he wanted to bring Olivia into arms. It was room temperature, but she was covered in cold sweat as though she had just been scooped up from the water. A while later, she slowly calmed down. Finally, he walked closer to her gingerly. Liv, are you okay? Olivia grabbed his hand. Her palms were clammy, but it didn't bother him. He grabbed her hands tightly to warm her up. It took her some time to catch her breath. I thought I had fallen into the water. It was so weird. It's dry, but it felt so real. I couldn't breathe. Her voice was sandpaper rough. Water. There's no water though. Was it a dream? Noticing that she was feeling better, he sat by the bed and hugged her gently. The distress hadn't left her yet. She waved her hand. No, that's not it. It felt so much like the time I fell into the sea back then and was drowning. Water was flowing into my eyes, nose, and ears. Wait, the water felt warm. I think someone dunked my head into the water. It was so real, like I experienced it firsthand. Terror shrouded her. What's happening to me, Ethan? What's going on? Why am I in Laura Village? Ethan felt that something was off too. Could it be related to Jacqueline, who was having a shower? You've been cursed, Liv.